Okay, today we're going to look at genetic diversity. We're going to look at what it is and a few different things that can affect the genetic diversity within a species. Before we do that though, let's just run over a few key points. The section of DNA that codes for a protein is called a gene. Why is that important? Well, proteins can form enzymes that catalyse the reactions that make us who we are. So those reactions that make us who we are, make us one species, and then the differences within a species will be down to those enzymes controlling certain reactions. So we just look at this sentence here. Different species have different genes and different numbers of genes. That's what makes them different to one another. Members of the same species have the same genes, but the differences within a species between individuals will be down to alleles. Now remember, alleles are different versions of the same genes. Here's a nice example. Two dogs, two members of the same species, massively different. The reason that is because they've got different alleles. They'll have the same genes, but they'll have different versions of them called alleles. Now, let's look at this statement here. The greater the number of alleles of all members of a species possesses, the greater the genetic diversity. So the more versions of the same genes that a species has got, so the more alleles they've got, the greater the genetic diversity. Here's an important question here. Why does a large genetic diversity make a species more able to deal with environmental change? Well, hopefully you should all be aware that means there's going to be more alleles, which equals more characteristics. If you've got lots and lots of different individuals with lots and lots of different characteristics, all members of the same species, that's going to make them more able to deal with any environmental change. So if something happens, some of the individuals will die, but if there's a large variety due to the number of alleles that are within that population, chances are, or there's a greater chance that some of them are going to be able to survive. Okay, so there's three ways in which you need to be aware of in which genetic diversity can be affected. And the first one is selective breeding, which is also known as artificial selection. It's pretty straightforward. Farmers are one group of people that deliberately want to reduce the genetic diversity of a group of organisms, be it wheat, which we've got here, or be it cows, or any other kind of animal. You deliberately want to reduce the genetic diversity. You're trying to make money. You are wanting to get the really desirable characteristics. You only want those alleles that can bring about profit. So be it the ability to produce milk in sheep, or large amounts of meat in other animals, or for example in the wheat that we've got here. Three desirable characteristics you'd be after: large grains, so you're getting lots and lots of wheat. Short stems. If you've only got short stem here, that means more energy is going to go to make the wheat grains. Whereas if you had a really long stem, that's going to cost more energy. So there's going to be less energy available for the wheat at the top. And obviously disease resistance is going to be another desirable characteristic. So all three of these things are desirable characteristics in a wheat plant. So what does selective breeding do? Well, it reduces genetic diversity, so you only have the desirable alleles. Okay. Example you need to know about is called the founder effect. Now it's often associated with volcanoes. Well, that's a good example of it anyway, I should say. And if you imagine a new land has been created due to volcanic eruption in the sea, if just a few individuals from a population go on to colonise that land, and then they are able to grow and grow and grow in number, that whole population on the new island will have been brought about by just a few individuals. So it's having a very small genetic diversity to begin with, leading to a much reduced genetic diversity in the population as a whole. So let me try and use a diagram to explain that. So, imagine we've got some existing land here, and here's the sea, and this land has got this plant species on it. In this species here, this plant, there's a large genetic diversity, lots and lots of individuals with lots and lots of different alleles for the same versions of the genes. Something happens, a volcano comes about or something like that, and what we end up with is a new bit of land being produced here. Now, seed dispersal normally only allows and enables the seeds to get this far, so they're never able to colonise this new island that's been formed due to a volcano over here. However, on a particularly blustery day, just a few seeds, 3 for example, are able to colonise this new land. With these 3 species here, 3 seeds here, members of the same species, you've got a very small genetic diversity, just a few different alleles for those same genes. If these were now to grow, each one of these grows, and then they're able to grow, reproduce, and you end up with another population here. The population on this side is going to have a much reduced genetic diversity compared to this side, because there's just a few founders, just a few individual seeds that have been able to make their way over here, and the alleles that they bring has been just a small fraction of those that are found on this side. Okay, and the final way in which genetic diversity can be affected is by something called a genetic bottleneck. If we just have a look at this diagram here to begin with. If you imagine this bottle here represents all the alleles, so the gene pool of all the species within, all the individuals within a species in the population. Some chance event might occur. Now the chance event could be hunting, it could be a natural disaster, it could be climate change, it could be something, and what that leads to is just a few of these individuals surviving. Now how that's represented with the genetic bottleneck is just quickly turning the bottle over and catching the few balls that have fallen into a cup. Now in this case you're left with the blue and the yellow. If this blue and the yellow were now to reproduce, you'd end up with a cupful of blue and yellows, albeit there might be the odd random mutation, but that's very, very rare. So you end up with a full cup of blue and yellow balls. Still got a relatively large number of the species, but they've all got either blue or yellow, for a better word, alleles within them. Compare that to the original population where you had this much greater variety, you now got a much reduced genetic diversity. A good example of that is the cheetah here. And apparently the cheetahs underwent a genetic bottleneck. They were hunted to almost extinction, so you can imagine all the different alleles in the genetic makeup of the cheetah species were in this bottle. The bottle got tipped upside down. This bottleneck here, this effect is humans hunting, and just 1 or 2 individuals, or a few hundred individuals survived. They now reproduce, and you've now got a much reduced gene pool in this existing cheetahs that we have alive today. So much so that apparently if you can take a skin graft from any cheetah and put it on any other cheetah on the planet, and it will not be rejected. It's not sufficiently different to trigger an immune response in the donor or recipient cheetah. So, genetic diversity, it can be brought about by 3 different things: artificial selection, deliberately reducing the genetic diversity to just those few desirable characteristics; the founder effect, when just a few individuals colonise a new region, they grow and reproduce a number until they've got a large population with just those few alleles that came over in the first instance; and the genetic bottleneck, when a chance event, hunting, environmental change, natural disasters, etc., brings about a much reduced number of species, individuals within a species. They then reproduce, but they've only got the genetic or the gene pool that they had immediately after the chance event.